everybody, I'm Jenny with VineGo Artistware and also the Go Box, our at-home subscription art program. And what we have done at VineGo through this coronavirus pandemic is started to offer some of our really popular in-studio paintings at home, so you can paint on your own at home in your own little isolation and have something creative and fun to do, because while we're all sort of going through this, it's a very important thing to stay creative and kind of just give yourself a little bit of me time, and painting is super therapeutic. So I'm going to teach you a painting called Moon River. It is very popular at VineGo Studio, and it's very serene feeling. I love this painting. It's designed by one of my artists, Tanya, and we've taught it lots and lots of times. So this one actually just has a small color palette, just 4 colors. And if you ordered the kit from us, we ship these along with the canvas. And what you've got is white and black, pretty simple. We use those with most paintings. And then phthalo blue is a dark kind of navy, almost indigo blue. And then we have this opaque violet that I really love. We use this paint color for different paintings in the studio. It's a really rich but also kind of muted violet. And it is more opaque than other violets that we have. So, 4 colors, your canvas. Let's talk about other supplies. I always have either a paint rag or a paper towel. I usually use a paint rag, but it's gotten so crusty with paint that it hardly absorbs anything right now. So until I locate a new one, I'm using a paper towel. And then for this painting, I just use 3 brushes. Now, a lot of you have your own brushes, and that's awesome. We sell a kit that's got 3 different sizes. We've got the large brush, medium, which is a number 8 flat, and then the little round number 4 brush. But today, just to show you that different brushes work just as well, I'm gonna use this kit, which has a number 16 flat brush, a number 8 round, and a number 6 round. So whatever brush configuration you have, it will get the job done. So let's go ahead. We want to have a cup of water nearby, some old mug or cups that you can use to wash your brushes out. And the paint will stain the cups, so I've got a lot of cups that I use that are just paint cups because there's paint inside. Let's go ahead and start by picking up our biggest brush. And go ahead and dip it in your water cup. Kind of brush it around on the bottom of the cup just to soften up and wake up the bristles. Whatever brush is your largest. So remember, we've got large, medium, and small. You have those 3, you're good to go. Let's dry the brush off on your paper towel or your regular towel. And let's talk about what we're going to do here. So Moon River has a horizon, and it's a river. There's trees along the back. We've got the moon hanging out up here, and then lots of purple in the sky, some stars, a couple trees just sort of bordering and framing the painting in. And we're gonna start from the back, working forward. So the last parts we'll do will be like the trees and then the highlights. So we're gonna start way back with the horizon, sky, and water. Let's take our biggest brush. Go ahead and dip it in the purple. So that was your opaque violet. And then I just kind of sketch out a line that's about right in the middle of the canvas. Doesn't have to be exact, and it doesn't have to be perfectly straight because it ends up getting painted over. There we go. Wobbly line, totally imperfect, but hey, I got the first brush stroke down on the canvas, and that is the hardest part. So let's go ahead now and take your brush loaded up with some more of that opaque violet, and I'm gonna start sort of a sweeping upward motion from the horizon line. Don't worry if you paint down below here. We need to actually put purple down here later, so no biggie. I'm gonna go probably about halfway up. Halfway between the horizon and the top before we sort of change things up a bit. And you'll see bits of canvas showing through. That's totally fine. If you have a little white speckling going on, just put some more paint over the top of that. That just means the paint didn't fall into every little tooth of the canvas. I tend to like to use nice long end-to-end brush strokes, but Paul, who also teaches the videos and owns the company with me, he tends to use a lot of short scratchy brush strokes. And his paintings look a lot of real natural looking landscapes. So either way works. You do whatever feels more like what you want to do. What's feeling good today? I'm just gonna kind of smooth it out a little bit. And like I said, I'm about halfway up from the middle line to here. And it doesn't have to be an exact perfect line. You can see mine sort of goes up higher. I naturally do that when I paint skies just to keep it looking uneven. I try, when I'm doing a naturescape, I want it to look very unplanned, like there's no HOA there, or we get everything perfect. And the sky tends to fade at different parts anyway. So now I'm gonna take my brush, which still has purple on it. There's no need to wash it off. I'm gonna dip it in white, and we're gonna take that white and just brush over primarily the middle area, because what this is going to do, you wanna blend it outward. This is where the sky is sort of getting lighter because the moon is right in the middle. So I'm going to just brush this outward, just sort of blending it outward. You can always add more purple on top or more white on top, but I just mix that lavender color right on the canvas, because when you add white to violet, you do get lavender. And you know, I wanted to say in the beginning of this filming too, any other colors that you have that you feel like would be a good addition to this, any colors you have at home, you could absolutely add in. Like you could add red and just make a pink and streak some pink into the sky. I think that would be really pretty. With this one, I always wondered what that would look like, but I'm not going to do it today just because I want to teach you guys what you signed up for. So I do want to wash the brush because I have a lot of lavender on there. And we are going to reflect this down in the water, but we won't do that quite yet. I want to get going upward and out into to finish up the top of the canvas. And what our goal here is, we're going to go from this purple to the indigo blue to finally a little bit of black. You can see we don't have a lot of room left, but we're going to sort of blend down just a little bit. So what I want to do, I'm going to take my two colors, the purple and the phthalo blue, which is your indigo blue. Let's mix those together to make something kind of halfway in between each. It makes a really pretty, gosh, I love this color. It's like a violet blue. Of course, because we're mixing violet and blue. So while this is still wet, it works best to do the wet on wet thing. And I'm gonna brush into the wet paint, kind of come down just a little bit so that you're able to blend it in with that wet, light lavenderish color. And let's brush maybe an inch or so wide band across this. Again, keep it uneven. You can go down lower on one side and up higher on the other. The sky fades differently. I do like to brush it down into the wet lavender paint because I feel like that's going to make a really nice blend. And oh, I can brush a little down here too if I want. You can always go back with acrylic paint and add more and paint over things. So if I ended up losing a lot of my violet, I could come back after this dries and just blend in a little bit more at a time. I always go a little bit at a time when I'm adding on top of what's already painted. So now what I want to do is take my brush. I've run out of paint just about. And if you haven't run out of paint, you can wipe it on your towel. A little bit of paint left on your brush is totally fine. And I'm going to dip it in just the indigo blue. So no purple mixed in this time. And we're going to transition to just indigo blue. We're going to take this to the top of the canvas. And then we'll add a little black in on top of that. So this part's pretty easy. We're just taking this dark blue all the way to the top. And then blend down if you need to. If you've got a real striped pattern where instead of fading gently into the next color, it's a harsh stripe, wash your brush, dry it off, and just use this sort of dry, damp brush and smooth everything together. When the paint is wet, it will do that. There we go. That blend is pretty good. Now, I've been painting blends like this for lots and lots of years, but especially in the last 9 years of having Bingo. So for me, it comes pretty easily. And I do like to go back and tell people different tips, common little problems that come up and how to fix them. That's what I'm gonna do now. So if you're still finishing up, just keep listening while you're working. And if you encounter an issue, like what is super common, what I'm gonna talk about next, you'll know how to tackle it. So the most common issue I see with a sky color blend, and then again reversing that in the water, is the students tend to have a bold stripe of purple, a bold stripe of lavender, and then a bold stripe of the blue, rather than have it be like more like a gradient or a soft fade. And it's real easy to go back and fix that. I tend to like to wash and dry my brush and then go for the lightest color blending into the darker one. So like this looks pretty good, but I would show you how I would fix like if it felt like it had too hard of a line. So I would take the white and purple, make a small amount of a lavender-ish kind of color. I don't have much on my brush at all. It should almost look like you have nothing on your brush. And then I would take that and brush it right over the seam where the two colors meet. And what that is going to do, it's going to glaze over it and soften the edges. So if you have that real lined stripe looking background going on, this is just a way to soften it all up. And if it ends up being too light like that, then you've just made yourself some unintended clouds, which I think is really cool. I've ended up with a lot of that over the years where it's like, oh, well, apparently a cloud really wants to be there. So I'm just going to leave it because it looks good. In fact, I'll show you like a hazy little misty cloud. That would be very common in this kind of scene because overall the Moon River scene is obviously it's nighttime, it's over water, and so a lot of times you would have like a low-lying mist, not something so thick that you won't be able to see the moon clearly, but a little like hazy whitish or light purple clouding going on in here is totally welcome. And now I want to, before this blue dries too much, I want to add a little black in this upper corner. I'm going to come down just a bit. So you want to use a tiny amount of black because we already have this painted. If you have too much black on your brush, what would happen is you'd have to figure out where you just keep brushing it and it's not running out. So then suddenly your whole sky is covered with black. So I'm literally going to pick up a tiny bit of paint because I can always add more. Let me make sure oh good, I'm centered here. So I'm going to take in this upper corner with the small amount of black on my brush, brushing into the wet indigo blue, which is drying really fast. That's normal. One thing I could do here, if it felt like, oh, hey, I got it way too dark, you can take a little indigo blue and just brush along the edge of the black. We do want it pretty dark in the upper sky because when we paint stars on, having that dark setting will really make those stars pop out. And I could anytime take some of that purpley blue that I mixed, that was kind of the transition between the lavender and blue, and soften anything up. If you want some dark over here, you can put it in, maybe not a whole lot. I really don't want to erase a lot of these blue and purple colors by covering them with black. Every time I add paint on, I'm just adding a tiny bit at a time. At this point. In the beginning, I'll use a little more paint. At this point, we're just adding a little bit at a time. And I could leave it like this, or I could go back with any of these other colors, whether it's purple or indigo blue or the purple and blue mix we made, and just add some back in there. Just work the sky until you have it the way you like it. You can always pause me if you're wanting to fix something up and it feels like I'm going a little faster than feels comfortable. Just put me on pause and work your sky up till you get it the way you like it, and then continue on with me. So I'm just adding a little purple here and there. Oh, I like that. Streak a little purple a little higher up and let it blend in. Then again, you've got unintended hazy clouds. This is one of those things where up close, to me, it looks kind of messy, you know, not real perfect. But if I were to look at it from maybe 10 feet away, it would be, even 5 feet away, it would look pretty good. There we go. I'm gonna take a little sip of my tea while you guys are catching up. Hopefully you guys are all staying nice and healthy and finding some things to do at home. I know at home we've been watching a lot of movies and obviously filming a lot of videos and packing up a lot of kits to ship out. It's been a whole different thing for us, although we're really glad that back in September we had started our at-home ship to you program. So we felt, okay, well, we already are a little bit ahead of the game. We already know what paint bottles we like to use, what brushes we like to use, all that stuff. So, and we have our, our shipping program worked out too. So that felt pretty good. It's just weird having the studio closed right now. Okay, so we just did this beautiful sky. We need to sort of reflect it on the water. I'm not gonna go like hardcore, like exactly what I did up here has to be down here. No, I just mainly want some of the colors down in here. Because the whole river, it's not gonna be the whole entire bottom. We have some big land masses that come in, and I've got the painting on my screen over there, so I'm checking it out once in a while. So we are, we're only gonna have a small portion of the river showing, and then we streak in white reflections from the moon on it anyway, so I don't want you to worry and fret too much about how the water looks, because so much of it gets covered up. So let's start again with our biggest brush. I'm gonna clean it off, because I had some other color on there. And to clean these and knock off excess paint pigment, I just sort of brush it rapidly across the bottom of the cup I don't want to poke it down like this because that tends to fray the brush bristles and it won't last as long. Brushes will keep for a very long time if you treat them right. Wash them every time you use them, when you're done. And you can reshape them by pinching the bristles together and let them dry like that. So let's go ahead and start with the purple, just like we did in the very beginning of the painting. And this time we want to keep our brush strokes nice and flat. So up here, I was kind of doing this upward angle thing. With water, we want to give the impression that water is sitting nice and flat. And so what I do is I just go back and forth like this, using the wide side of the brush. So your horizon will end up being sort of eliminated. You'll probably always know exactly where it was because it ends up with a little bit of a line there until we put trees over it. So I'm going to paint down maybe a couple inches with this, just the violet, the opaque violet color. Back and forth. One thing I do like about this painting is it is a fairly easy one, but it looks really beautiful. So it's not one that's gonna cause too much stress. Painting shouldn't cause you stress anyway. We're the ones who kind of create our stress because we have this idea in our mind that we have to do everything perfect. It's just the way we are as humans. I've run into that too. So now I've got about 2 inches down of just the violet. I'm gonna dip the brush in white and do what we did in the sky and just brush from the center part, kind of working up a little bit. I'll just brush a little bit of white at a time in there to mimic this, because the sky should be light around the moon. You wouldn't suddenly see this black sky with a white moon with no lighting around the moon, because if you look out at the moon at night, and look at the sky around the moon. So I'm giving you guys things to think about and look at. You'll notice the sky is lit up around the moon. It's not just solid black because the light emanating off there is going to light up the sky around it. It's funny to think that the moon is just a big ball of dirt that the sun is shining off of. When I was a kid, it's just funny the way you think as kids. I used to think that the moon was a light source, like the sun is. So it's really interesting to think back on those kind of things. And then I remember driving in the car with my parents on the way home from like my grandparents' house, and I would think the moon was following us. Super funny the way kids think, but I love it. So now I'm gonna take, and I wanna use the color that was in between the purple and blue. So just mix those two together. I don't have a lot of paint left on my brush, so I'm not gonna wash it. You can wash it if you have a lot of lavender, although I don't think it would matter because this is we want them to just blend together anyways. So a little lavender left on your brush is not gonna be a big deal at all. So this is our transition color. Brush up into the wet paint, let them blend together. So you get that nice gradient. So we're doing like a little wet on wet. And it can be uneven. But what we're looking for is just we're forcibly blending these together. They will cooperate. And I'm gonna brush about 1.5 to 2 inches down. Taking a look at that. Any spot where you have a harsh line and it's not blended super well, just keep brushing over and over and move your brush upward into the purple and move it downward into the blue. And then you will get this pretty soft gradient. So now I'm gonna add just the dark blue. Same thing, I'll start below that wet paint, do a nice stripe across here, and then I start brushing up into that transition bluish purple. And again, just keep brushing upward a bit, and then back down, and then sometimes go back up a bit. So we get that nicely blended. We're not gonna worry about the black down here because, so technically yes, the black up here would reflect down on the water below, but later on, after we add the land masses that come in the side, they get a shadow underneath them. So we're just gonna add that later. Work your way through this. One thing that's kind of nice to have on hand nearby is a hair dryer. If you need to correct something and it's not working because your paint's too wet, you can blast this acrylic paint canvas with a hair dryer and it'll dry it in like 30 seconds. And then you can be able to go back and add more paint on top as needed. But right now it looks pretty good what I've got going on here with the lavender sort of just fading off into the dark blue, and then obviously a little black in the top of the sky. So far, so good. You guys keep working along. In the studio, so this is funny teaching on video, because in the studio, I will constantly hop off the stage and walk around and comment on people's paintings, or, you know, they'll flag me down sometimes. Hey, can you help me with this? So I end up being able to get back on the stage with enough time pass that I feel like everybody's ready to move on. But with video filming, it's a little different. My timing is, you know, it's not as, I can't really kill time by walking around and look at all your guys' paintings. So what I have to tell you is just pause me, pause the video if needed, if you need to catch up, or if, let's say, you need to go back and fix something up, but I'm already continuing on, just hit pause and come back with us when you're ready. So now I am going to add stars, because I want this to dry just a bit more before we add our tree line through the middle. So for stars, I have a fun technique I use. So you want to pick up your littlest brush, whether it's this one or whatever you have on hand, just a little round brush. But we're going to use the handle end, not the brush end. And the white stars, they're primarily going to be in these darkest areas. So a lot of times you won't see a lot of stars near the moon. If you do see them, bright stars near the moon, almost always they're planets. Because the moon is going to cast off so much light that's going to light up the sky, and some of the stars you wouldn't be able to see. So I'm going to take my brush handle, dip it in the white, and I usually will stamp a few dots on my palette first so I don't end up with like mega stars right off the bat. And I'll just go through and dot some stars starting in this upper corner. The moon is going to end up being right here. And every time I re-dip my brush handle in the white, I'll dot it off just a bit. because you can end up with a supernova pretty quick, which sometimes is cool. Sometimes you maybe don't want it. So we'll start by being careful right off the bat. And then I can put some over here. You can definitely have some down in the lavender part, only you would have more up in the dark area. Because the light, I hate to use the word pollution, but it's light pollution, which is, that doesn't mean like pollution, but there is such a thing as light pollution. And I learned a lot about that when my son was little, and he was really into looking up stars. We got him a telescope, and we had to be really aware of like light pollution. We got these special outdoor lights that had filters and were rated for light pollution. So that's where I learned all that. It was really cool to look through a telescope and see the eeriest feeling. You just feel so small. Like I remember looking and seeing we could see Saturn's rings. Saturn and Saturn's rings and some of Saturn's moons. And you just feel like, wow, we are really small. There's so much more. There's so much more out there. So there, I'm just going to primarily, you can see I kept the stars kind of on either side. Don't worry if you put a few in here. I'm just using the original painting as a guide. One thing I do want to do is wipe the handle of my brush off, because what can happen is every time you do stars or something, whether you're doing snowflakes or stars, if you don't wipe off the handle of your brush, you end up with a buildup that makes doing these really hard. So we'll clean that off. I think my tea's getting cold. Okay, so let's go ahead and I know I was going to do the tree line, but I think I want to do the moon right now, because we want to place our moon in the right area and then do the trees. Just kind of planning ahead here. And the moon itself on the original painting, I was going to give it a size. It's really about the size of $50, I think. And you can find something to trace at home, maybe a quarter or $50 or some other little round thing. Sometimes like a lid from a paint bottle would work. But I'm going to freehand it. I'm going to use the brush end now of my littlest brush, whether you've got this little number 6 round or number 4 round, whatever you got. And then the moon is right about in here. It's not all the way up in the sky, but if you want it higher, you can. Just think about where the lightest area is. And just press real lightly. A lot of times I'll do a half circle first, like you're painting a rainbow. And then go around and sort of try to mimic that with the other half of the circle. I've ended up with a lot of oval moons or egg-shaped moons. And if that happens, I'll make them wider on the side. Just take your time. If you feel like you need to trace something, absolutely go for it. Now when we fill in the moon, we want to leave some of the background showing through. So I'm not going to do a full-on thick opaque layer of white. The reason we're doing that is because that creates the craters on the moon. So I'll start from the edges. And then maybe I'll brush and let my brush run out of paint. And then look, those areas where I let my brush run out of paint can start looking like craters on the moon. If you do a really heavy white opaque coverage, you can leave it like that, or you can go back with the purple or any other color that we used in the sky and paint your own subtle little dark spots on the moon. But see how I am leaving, and a lot of it's just my brush ran out of paint and just really hazing the white color in there. Getting a perfect round shape is a bit of a challenge. So I could take and wash my brush and dry it off. and just work with this wet paint that's on here and sort of really lightly smudge it around. And then you're not, covering up all those little dark spots, but you're, maybe softening them up a little bit so it doesn't look so much like, hey, it's just the background showing through. Let me show you how it would look. I'll do the right side of the moon here, more opaque, so that I can show you what it would look like to come back and add craters back in. So I want a nice clean dry brush, and I'm gonna take the blue and purple mix, but I don't want a lot of paint on my brush. I'll wipe it off on my towel, and then I just kind of dot it in little splotches, because really what we're seeing like big canyons and craters on the moon. So sometimes like there's just a big huge canyon running through there, so it's like a big dark splotch. Then I'll clean my brush and just sort of work with that, dabbing it out and spreading it out and tapping my brush around. You can do that anywhere. Like I can play with this one a little more. It's kind of fun and kind of frustrating at the same time. It's actually really only been the past few years that I feel like I've gotten to where I can paint moons pretty decent, because I've had a lot of years where I would just want to throw down my paintbrush. And you can go back and add little white spots too. Little splotches. I don't want polka dots. Think of them more like little splotches. Like this right here, this is like the Grand Canyon on the moon. So it's not just little dark polka dots. It's like there's a big splotch there. And I'm just gonna kind of clean up the edges. I'm not gonna worry about it too much. It's not a perfect circle. I think it looks pretty good shading wise. It works. I do feel like I could add a little more dark on this side. So usually what I'll do is I'll tap in a big splotch, and that's a little too much. It kind of looks like the Batman symbol right now. So I'll take and clean my brush and then feather out the edges of that into the white. Pretty cool. That works for me. You can play around with it. You can pause the video if needed, get it. I know I'm probably saying that way too many times. I'm trying to nail it in. You can pause the video. But that will make it nice and blend it in, but also keeping it looking like a moon. And now we're gonna paint our tree line. It's a line of fir trees that goes around just right across the middle of this. And rather than having us paint individual tree trunks and trees, I'm going to show you this cool trick that we've been doing in the studio for several years. And it's a really easy way to get a forest of trees on there without painstakingly painting each individual tree, which would drive you crazy. So I'm going to use my biggest brush. You might have this one, or you might have one like this one, but we want to use the skinny edge. And color-wise, we need it to be pretty dark, but not as dark as like these front little landforms will be, because when you look out at a landscape, generally, like let's say you're looking out at like in Oregon we have Mount Hood. Let's say you're looking out at Mount Hood and then you see the foothills and then the closer hills and the hills way far back are going to be really light, and then every little graduation they get darker and darker. And what that does, if you're replicating that in a painting or art, it gives the sense of three-dimensional quality or perspective. So we're going to do these landforms really dark, but way back here we want our tree line to be dark still, but not as dark as these will be. So I'm going to take my big brush. I'm going to pull aside some of my opaque violet, and then I'm going to pull about half as much black into it. And just mix that around and see. So I want it to be what I would call off black. It's kind of a deep charcoal gray. The nice thing about this opaque violet is it does have a bit of white mixed into it to help make that color. And so when you're mixing the black into it, that white with a lighter color in there turns it charcoal gray. So you can definitely see the difference with these side by side. Totally black right here, void of color, and then this one's more charcoal. So I'll usually hold it up to my canvas and make sure that it's dark enough to be seen against this purple. And it is. And now I'm going to move my canvas aside to show you on paper, which you'll notice I've been teaching a lot of paintings this week. It's a lot of kids' paintings and other things, so I have a lot of fun doodles going on here. So you can just ignore my weird pandas and my Nightmare Before Christmas panda. And let's talk about the tree line. So we've got our horizon line here. Let's pretend this panda's the moon. As weird as that sounds. And I want us to use the skinny edge of our brush. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna wiggle this up and down. You wanna glue it to your canvas. So I'm not lifting and touching. I'm just wiggling it up and down while it's stuck to the canvas. And you can see already that it makes a tree-like pattern. Like trees in the distance, you don't see the individual trees. You mainly just see the rugged edges. And that's what we're shooting for. We can always go back and clean it up. That first round though, just keep going and get it across the canvas, and then we'll plan on going back and like cleaning up edges, maybe using a smaller brush if needed. But keep it glued to the canvas. Think of this as like a heart rate monitor or a sound wave. That kind of will get if you think about it as something different, it'll help you de-stress about painting trees. Nope, you're painting a sound wave, or you're painting a heart rate monitor. Don't worry about going below the horizon line. We have to put a shadow down there anyway, so that's gonna be totally fine. And make sure your trees are pretty vertical up and down. So I always just kind of use the sides of the canvas as a guide, parallel those. And I think I need to mix a little more color because using it on the paper, I used up a lot of it. Charcoal gray made with opaque violet and black. Skinny edge of the canvas. My brush is a little frayed, that's okay. I'm gonna start way over here. And I'm just thinking, here's my sound wave. So I'll sometimes make shorter trees and occasionally travel up and make a little higher tree. Don't worry about this down here. We are just worried about the top edge. We're gonna come back and paint and fill that in. I probably would have done better to choose a less raggedy looking brush, but I had a nice beat up one. I know Paul likes to use the beat up brushes. Sometimes I think he purposely beats them up in the studio. He paints a little more impressionist style than I do, so it works really good for that. So yeah, it looks like we're just painting a really ugly monobrow on our canvas, and it's gonna drive you crazy for a little bit, and it's gonna make your brain hurt. But just keep rocking through it, get all the way across, and just have faith that we're gonna come back and clean it up. Paintings a lot of times just have this rough and ugly phase, and it's kind of like growing out a bad haircut. It climbs right out of that hole and gets better. So I've made my way all the way across the canvas. Before this dries too much, I do want to just come under, and I'm just going smudging back and forth. I want to fill up any of these little holes. Go ahead and let some of this wet paint smudge down into the water, because these technically would be casting a shadow in the water, especially with the moon being right behind them. So I'll just lightly, with very little wet paint on my brush, go back and forth under these trees. And you know what? We're going to come back later and clean the edge of the water up. But for now, this part's important to make sure that you have a bit of a shadow going on. Sometimes people have done it this way, where they've just brought the shading down, so it's like you're reflecting the trees. I always think that looks pretty good, but do either way, whatever feels better to you. We kind of all have our different approaches. I'm kind of liking this, what I'm doing here, but feel free to do it your own way. any part that needs to be patched or repaired with more of that charcoal gray paint. I've got weird glare from these LED lights, so sometimes I have to tilt my canvas different ways. If you feel like the top edges of these maybe don't look as good as you want, like me, I have a really, like I said, a frayed brush, so some of these are a little wonky. I'm gonna wash this brush off. A lot of you might have nice, perfect brushes, so you don't have to worry about this. But I will show you in case you do need to clean up the top edges of some of the trees. I'm gonna use my number 8 round, or some of you might have, if you're using a set like this one, like the one we sell in store, maybe your number 8 flat would be good. And I'll dip it in water first and dry it off, just to kind of loosen up the bristles, make them more flexible. I'm gonna dip it in that charcoal paint we made, and I'll just come through and on an individual basis, any of these that look funny or look like they could use a little bit of help, I'll just touch up the tops. Doing the same exact thing, you know, kind of wiggling up and down, but primarily focusing on the top edge of these. And think about it this way, they're across the river in the night. They're not necessarily going to appear as perfect trees, they're just going to be these dark shapes. They're important to have here just to kind of add to our whole landscape feeling. And if we didn't have them there, it'd look more like the ocean, or like a Lake Superior or some never-ending lake. But I'm gonna leave it as it is right now. I can go back and add more paint if after this dries, if I feel like, oh, there's some weak spots that need a little more paint, I'll go back and add to it. But I think for now, we're gonna carry on. We're gonna work on our lower land masses. We'll do this one first, which is easy because it starts about halfway and it goes to about the halfway point of the canvas. It's just a little hill, just like that. And that's gonna be done in solid black. And I'm gonna use my biggest brush to draw that out and color it in, just to keep it easy. So go ahead and when you're ready, take your biggest brush and dip it in solid black. This time we aren't gonna have any color mixed in with it. We do put some blue highlights on these little land forms, so they will have their nice little extra special touch later on. So let's make a couple marker points. Let's mark off a halfway point between the bottom of the canvas and the tree lines, or the shadow from the tree line, right about there. And mine's obviously, it's not exact half. I've got a little more space here and here, but that's okay. And now let's mark off a spot that's pretty close to the middle. Doesn't have to be exact. And then I'm just going to make a lumpy, bumpy hill. Sometimes you'll bump up a bit, gentle bumps all the way down to there. And now I can fill that in, and this part's really easy. Just fill it in however you can get there. The black is really opaque and it's gonna cover on top of this paint we've already base painted on here. It's gonna cover really good. There we go. And now what I want to do is, I'm just looking at the original here. I've taught this before in class. It's just been a while. I think the last time I taught it myself was in our Tigard studio, which is a while back. But it kind of follows along with the formula we use for most of the paintings in the studio. What I want to do next is I want to make sure I don't have a huge amount of paint on my brush. And I don't. If you have a big glob, you'll want to wipe it off on your towel. You can have a little on there, but I want to use the brush to create grassy shapes, and I just use the wet paint that's already here, and I just do a quick flick upward. So you don't want to lean, like you don't want your grass to really lean too much. It's going to pretty much go straight up and down, even on these where the hills go down. If your paint has dried, which mine has dried through here pretty good, I'll just dip the brush in, pick up a little fresh paint. I'm using my biggest brush here. So then it looks like it has this sort of grassy edge. You can use one of your little pointed brushes, whether it's, you know, this one or one of these other, like the one we use for the stars, but we're using the brush end. You can take a little black and you can create some little, maybe taller stands of grass here and there, just by quickly flicking upward. I'm always a fan of adding things like this to keep it more natural looking. Like nobody's here mowing the lawn. There's going to be swamp grass and river grass and all kinds of stuff. And here's what I did, which is so normal. Oh, I think I've gone out of the picture a little bit, maybe. I apologize. I have this little guide drawn on here to keep me from doing that, but I must have got really into the painting. So, yes, I made my little grassy edges with the big brush, and now I'm coming back with the smallest brush and just making some little stands of taller grass. Give it more of a natural look. And what I was going to point out is that if you notice, mine are like evenly spaced. That's so common. Even for someone like me who's been painting for over 25 years, I do that sometimes with stars too. I have to force myself to make a random pattern. So I'll like plop another stand of grass right next to one that I did just to keep it so it doesn't look like someone came in and planted them in like even little spots all the way across. There we go. Looking good. I'm just gonna scoot that a little more. Now, let's paint our little floating landform out here. And I'm just looking at that one. One thing I do like about these landforms is when they're painted in, it makes it look like the river's flowing around, which is super cool. So for this one, it's just going to be kind of a wedge shape. We leave a little bit of this light purple part of the river showing through. It's going to come across here right about to middle. So it's going to be pretty lined up with here. And then it's just going to come back straight across. So just like I did before, I'm going to make marker points. I'm going to use my biggest brush. This guy here, or you might be using one as big as this, that's okay. Dip it in the black paint and let's make our marker points. So I'm going to come, let's see here, planning it out. I'm going to come about 1/2 inch to 1 inch below where your darkest tree is. So maybe about there. Make a dot. And then let's make a point where this is going to go out to in the water. And like I said, I just like to line it up with here. So I'm going to sort of eyeball it up, and then I want it to be in line with this one. If I were to draw a straight-ish line across, make some kind of little dot, something to give you a reference. This particular landform is not as hilly as this one. It's kind of just more of a straight shot. It's got a little bit of a hill, little bump. So I'm gonna go through, maybe bump up just a little bit and then back down to here. And then this is going to kind of curve down and then go straight across. We want it to be wide enough or tall enough that it looks like trees could grow out of it, because if it's too thin, it wouldn't make sense for a rooted tree to grow there. So I'm usually gonna have to make it a little bit bigger. Right now it looks like I'm painting a whale in here or something. I'm gonna use one of my smaller brushes, like my medium-sized brush, and just kind of clean up the edge. I have to do that a lot. I want it to sort of come out to a bit of a point, like a rounded point is fine. And then I'll take a look here, see if like maybe I need to bump up a little more. Felt a little thin between here and here. But I do want a peekaboo view of the river behind it. Okay, that looks pretty good shape-wise. Looks like a weird whale. I'm gonna take my biggest brush now and solid black and fill it in. Dab, dab, dab. I hope you guys watch some Bob Ross too while you're stuck at home. He's really calming and you learn a lot of really important paint tips. He's a really good one. And there's several other painters now that have their classical art paint programs too, which are, it's neat to watch all of them because you will get different tips. And you'll usually find someone who's maybe more of the style that you like to be. All right, I've got my little weird wedge of land. I want to give it some grass, just like this one. So just like before, I'm taking my biggest brush and just sort of flicking upward. Real short little flick all the way across. Flick, flick, flick. And then you can use one of your small brushes, like my smallest, and make some little stands of grass, just like we did with these over here. Rogue river grass. Excellent. It's always so nice and dark and glossy when I first paint it on, and then it's going to dry to be more of a matte feel, which I think that's good. That it's not overly glossy. So I've got a little spot where some black flicked up there. And what I'll probably do is just let it dry so I can tell it's still a little bit wet, and I'll just dot a star over the top of it. Or it can just be a bat. It can be a bat flying around in the background. So this is looking good. We have some more steps. Obviously, we need to make the trees. One thing I want to do before I go too crazy with adding trees, I want to create the water line back here. So that's where the shore breaks against the land, way back here. And then we'll come in with white underneath the moon and just get some white highlights in the water. And then we also need to shade under the sky. In fact, let's do the shading right now rather than flip back and forth. So you can take your biggest brush, and you might even still have wet paint here, which that's what I'll do. I'll brush across it so I pick up some wet paint. That way I'm not picking up a huge amount, but if you need to dip your brush on your palette, you can do it that way too. All I'm going to do is I'm turning my brush. I'm using the thin edge of the bristles, but I'm using it horizontally. This water sits flat. And I'm just going to shade, pulling this wet paint down, shade under this landform. And I'm going to go about this whole mass is maybe 1.5 inches tall. So I'm going to come down into the water about 1.5 inches, give or take. Sometimes reflections and shadows will stretch and be a little bit longer than the object that's casting them. So it really doesn't make a big deal if you make your shadow a little longer or not quite exact. Just a little at a time. It's really easy to suddenly pop on a whole bunch of black paint and realize, oh, what have I done? If that happens, let it dry a bit and work on another part, maybe add some more grass somewhere, and then come back and just add a little dark blue mixed in there, just to break it up. So there, we've got our shadow cast, because the moon would definitely make this dark silhouetted piece of land drop a shadow into the water. I can see it up on the monitor there, making sure I'm staying on camera. Let's go ahead now and prepare to make our water line back here. Now, if needed, maybe after we're done doing that, you can go in and touch up any trees that maybe as they've dried, maybe they need a little more of that charcoal gray paint. I've got a couple that could probably use a little more. I'll see in the end if it bothers me still. And let's do it. Okay, so I want to use my middle size brush here. And you might be using a round one, totally fine. You might be using a flat one like this, totally fine. If you're using the flat one, make sure you're using the skinny edge and you're just gonna go straightish across here. If you're using the round one, we're just gonna obviously use the pointed tip of the bristles and go straight-ish across. I always say straight-ish because it is nearly impossible to get a perfectly straight line. Color-wise, I'm going to mix this color. So that was the opaque violet, which I'm running out of, and a little white. You don't need much color at all. I just try to get it pretty close to what the river color is. In fact, you could do it a shade or two lighter. And I'll just hold my brush up and be like, oh, that's probably close enough. I didn't mix enough, as usual. One thing I do like to do when I'm doing this technique, which is a Bob Ross learned technique, putting the light horizon or edge of the water along the land, I do want to add a drop of water to it. So I'll just dip my brush in the water, maybe a drop or two. Thin it out just a bit, because you want to get a nice long brush stroke without having to constantly stop and dip your brush in paint again. So, some people might find better luck turning their canvas like this and pulling it down towards them. Or you might be one that does better going straight across. Try what works best for you. Think about what works best for you. If you mess up and suddenly you've got like this big wave that looks funny, which I don't see that very often, but every once, maybe you sneeze halfway through or something. Don't worry about it. We can go back with the charcoal gray, touch it up, and start again. I don't want to go right through the middle of the trees. I kind of want to do the lower, like, third of the trees. So if I were to divide this section into 1, 2, 3 stripes, so like top stripe, middle stripe, and then along the water stripe, I'm gonna do about a third of the way up. And I'm just gonna go slow. Try not to breathe. Just kidding, I don't want you to pass out. So mine's ending up being like closer to halfway between the trees, and that's okay. It's just like it's dividing my trees from the reflection in the water. Pressing very light. It's okay to have a little wobbliness. Maybe there's a rock under the water there, or a log or something that's causing the water to bump up just a little bit. Maybe it's Nessie making her nighttime rounds. Little Loch Ness monster. So it looks really weird right now because it's just one light line all the way across. So what I do here is I do something that makes the water look a little more glassy. And I'm gonna take that same color and I'm just gonna put some little water current lines. So they're horizontal lines, just sort of scraped on there. And I'm primarily putting them through these shadows of the trees. So rather than just one solid line way back here, we've got a little extra horizontal lines going in. You could water down your paint even more so it dries being a little more transparent. I feel like I have a lot of paint on my brush. And you could just randomly bring this down. The other thing that this can end up looking like, which I think is really neat, is like there's a little fog laying down on the edge of the water, and I love it when you're out at a place at night and there's water and you've got that kind of low-laying mist. I think that is such a pretty thing. And in fact, I just recently taught a painting to a group of Nike professionals where we did that, and it looked so good. So good. So I'm gonna leave it like that. I could bring a little bit more down in here, but you know, we're gonna have big white highlights from the moon, so there's really no need to do that. But we did set our edge of our water, which is great. That's what we want. Gonna wash that brush off, and you know what? I'm gonna do my little dotted star over this black mark. Boom, there. Now I could add, I definitely have a very open space around the moon where I feel like, yeah, I could bring a few stars in there. I don't want it to look too planned out. Like they're just, oh, we're avoiding the moon, we don't want to come close. A few here and there are gonna be okay. Maybe some of those bright ones are planets. Wipe the handle of your brush off. And we're going to next add the white highlights in the water. So your moon is going to be casting this beautiful light reflection on the water. And you can make it the same width as the moon. I like to kind of spread it out more, like the moon is kind of just, the light's radiating out. And I've seen it different ways in nature and in paintings. I'm gonna use my middle-sized brush. Either of these two. If you use this one, use the skinny edge. This one, we've got a pointed edge, so that's fine. Pure white now. Just dip it right in the white paint. Don't be scared here. What we're gonna think about this is like a tornado shape. So it's gonna be wider back here and then just slowly go down to where it's a little narrower. And at some point too, I think I'll have us add a little bit of blue to the white and put that in there too. So let's go right under the moon. Just like we did with those water lines, this is water. It's just the moon casting its light on the water. And you know, I'm gonna add a little bit of water to my paint. Your water is kind of a grayish blue. Don't worry about that. When you paint it on the canvas, it's still gonna look white. But if you really wanna change out your water, you can pause the video and go ahead and do that. But I made kind of a watery white. You don't want it so wet that it's gonna, especially if you're using easel, it would drip down. You'd have these white drips coming down. I just have enough water that it's fluid and not gonna drip. I am painting on a flat surface, so it's not gonna drip anyways. Maybe add a little more paint to that water. So already we've got this cool look, like the river's just flowing around these landforms. Kind of reminds me of the Deschutes River a little bit. I, as a youngster, spent a lot of time in Sun River. Love that area. It's, if you're not from Oregon, or if you don't know where it is, it's around Bend, Oregon, about, I'm gonna say 20 minutes south of Bend. Beautiful little place. Rent homes there, condos. So let's go ahead and bring this down here. I'm just letting my brush run out of paint and see how I'm getting narrower. It goes from a little wide to suddenly it's getting a little more narrow. And if you want, this is optional. I did notice it in the original, so I always like to add it on. You can mix a little tiny bit of your dark blue into some white. And you can add bits of that in here too. Oh gosh, I didn't add enough. Against the white, it just looks white. About like that. As I keep going. Love it. You can always go back and add more if, as it's dried, it maybe has dried a little transparent. I definitely will have areas like that. And sometimes you can leave it, and sometimes it might bother you enough that you want to pop a little more color in there. And now we are going to paint some trees. So on this landform, we have I'm just straightening this up here. We've got a fir tree that goes above this back tree line, so that gives it the sense of this is larger. We're closer to this tree than we are to these trees. And then on this one, there's 2 deciduous trees, and you can do just 1 or you can do 2. And a lot of people will have an easier time with 1. Some people have an easier time with deciduous trees, and then others will have it easier with the fir trees. Just kind of depends. And both of them, practice. I'll show you how I paint them. And if you want to practice on your palette or on a sheet of paper before you touch your canvas, that's always a very good idea. So let's go ahead and start with our fir tree right here. And I know it's going to feel scary because we're painting over stuff we worked on for the last, I don't know, 45 minutes or however long we've been doing this. But don't be scared. It's all going to come together. My rules for trees, let me just push this aside and work on my paper again. Let me see if I have a piece. I know I do. I have paper right here. I don't want to go over someone's border. There we go. Okay, so I'll use this. Fir trees. I'll just paint one over here. I like to use, we do these in black, and I like to mix a drop of water with a small portion of black. Thin it out to like the consistency of like heavy cream. Not so it's gonna drip, but not so it's like just, as the paint sits here, it gets thicker and thicker. So adding the little water in it helps a lot. And then, so we've got down here, we've got this little landform that goes like that. And I draw the tree trunk first. Let me just dot out, like, let's say this is our water line. And we've got the moon. We've got all these trees along here. So I'm going to draw the tree trunk first. And it's really hard to draw it straight, but just parallel the edge of your canvas. Boom. They're usually a little thicker where they grow out of the earth, and then thinner at the top. Ugh, that didn't work very good. But most of this tree trunk you won't see because it's completely covered all the way around with pine needle foliage. And so don't worry about your tree trunk too much, because mine's really ugly and it's gonna get covered. I'm not worried about it. At the top, let's think about Christmas trees, because basically the fir trees are what we put in our house at Christmas time if you celebrate. And I want to do the little dotted fir area that, if you've ever tried to put the angel or Christmas star on top of the tree, sometimes these are really wonky, but it's just, you just do a little row of dabs. So it's like, I'll do a blown up version here. I'm just doing this, but on a tinier scale. So that's where we would pop that Christmas star on. And then below that, I let that stick up a little bit. I'm gonna paint dab out. I'm doing a lift and tap motion. A little mustache. So at first, it's gonna look like you drew an arrow that's pointing upward. And just under that, right tied up next to it, another mustache. Have it go maybe just a fraction wider than the one above it. If you get too wide right away, you're suddenly gonna end up with this giant, like this shape of tree. So under that, another mustache. Dab, dab, dab. You can get pretty quick at it after a while. But see, I'm not leaving a bunch of airspace between these tree boughs. Because what happens if you do that is you end up with the fishbone tree, which looks like this. We know that doesn't quite look like a tree you would see in nature. Every once in a while, in a very wind-blown area, like up in the gorge, you might see one that looks like that. But if you end up with that, it's super common. Just come in and dab in foliage between those. And it's super fixable. A lot of times people have done that and they think their painting's over and they're just done. Nope, everything's fixable. So I'm gonna keep going. I'll just go fast here, so I'm not keeping you guys waiting too long. Oh, that didn't look very good. Maybe going fast is not a good idea. So you can see it. You can't see my tree trunk anymore. It's gone. Now if you want, you can bring the foliage all the way down to the ground, or you can have that variety of tree that has a little bit of tree trunk showing. Just depends on how much you like your tree trunk and how much you like painting these tree boughs. But on the original, I noticed it does go all the way down to the ground, so I'll just paint it like that. And there we have it. So avoid the fishbone, avoid making it too wide right off the bat, because then you're gonna cover up a lot of your river. You can see there are little holes in between where we'll see the purpley river showing through, which is good. We're gonna come back after we get this solid black painted and after we do the other trees, and we're gonna put some blue highlights on him, which actually acts as a camouflage thing. It kind of thins out the tree in a weird way. So if your tree got too thick, don't worry, there's still hope for it. Okay, so let's get our canvas back here. Let me just make sure I'm in the picture instead of like I was last time. Looks good. All right, let's do it. Let's do it. So let's plot out where we're gonna put it. I would say, looking at Tanya's, it's probably about 2 inches from the edge here, but you can put it wherever you want. If you want it partially off the canvas, you can go hit that. I'll do the 2-inch thing, so I just eyeball it. I'm gonna make a little mark where I want it to grow out of the ground. Just maybe make like a little 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch trunk, a tree that broke off. And then I want it to come up. I'm just gonna kind of float my brush over the top and make a dot up here. I want it to come up to about here. It could go a little taller if you want, but that area looks pretty good. These are not in perfect alignment, but they're good enough. I'm going to paint my tree trunk from the ground or the sky down, whatever works for you. Maybe a combination of the both. Till they meet. And then you can mix a little water with your paint if needed to make it more fluid, but this, I'm using my middle-sized brush. I don't know if I had mentioned that. Very imperfect tree trunk. This is what it would look like if a volcano came through and that's all that was left of it. We're gonna turn it into a healthy tree. But we wanna start with that tree trunk. And remember, it gets covered up. You won't even really see it at all. Mine's very skinny. And if I wanted the tree trunk to show, I would make it a little bit wider line, but I am not planning on having it show, so I'm not worried about that. At the top of your tree, remember we do the little, like maybe 5 or 6 little dabs, little dots. That's the fir bough, tree bough that sticks straight up, although they're very hard to find ones that stick straight up. For your Christmas tree star. And now just below that, I'm gonna do a short little dabbed out mustache, baby mustache. And then I get that arrow pointing skyward feel. Real tightly right up under that one, another tree bough. It's just a fraction wider than the mustache above it. I call these mustache trees, and I feel like that's helped the students in the studio really understand what we're doing. Sometimes thinking of painting different things is helpful. Like when I said we're painting a sound wave back here. Now we're painting a stack of mustaches on a post. So your tree boughs, maybe they kind of slightly curl up. I have seen so many different fir trees. Some of them, the boughs grow upward and then they kind of go up to this like sort of teardrop shape. Some of them are a little more droopy. I always just do a tiny curve up at the edges of mine. I think it's just my style or habit that I've developed over the years. So you can see there's a few holes with the sky showing through, but pretty much you can't see my tree trunk. And now I'm getting a little wider. You don't want to commit way too early or you're going to have half your river taken up by a gigantic tree. If it does end up being a little wider than you like I was telling you earlier, we put some bluish highlights on and that does help. It's like a little trick, a little optical illusion. I like this brush for doing the trees. I usually use the flat brush here, which I'll show you how that would work. So if you're using a flat brush, it works ooh, too much water. It works the same way. You just get a slightly different. I've used this flat brush like this for years and years. I don't use a ton of round brushes. So you can see they work very similar. They both get the job done. They both make it look like a fir tree. I've had to, over the years, a lot of times I'll get hooked on certain brushes and then the manufacturer stops making them. And then I have to cry for a while. No, I do get kind of hooked on certain brushes. I can't paint without that kind. And then you realize, yes, I can. I can do it. It's not the brush. It's what comes out of the brush. It's what comes out of your head. There, I'm just sort of joining up with the ground here. And then I'll take a look at my tree and be like, how is its overall shape? Mine's a little, I don't know, it kind of looks like a spooky tree. It almost looks like it could be a Halloween painting. We could totally change the colors. How about that? Let's meet back here in October. We'll do this in like oranges and yellows and black. And then we will paint bats on it. So yeah, when I get the tree done, I just sort of touch up any tree boughs that might look like they need help. Just do a little at a time till it feels like it's somewhat right. And just remember, there are no perfect tree in the world. I have tried over the years because I'm artist in residence up at Skamania Lodge in the Columbia Gorge. And I've been going up there several times a month for the last 6 years. It's a nice long drive, but beautiful. And a lot of times I'm passenger in the car, Paul's driving, and I will look around for the perfect tree. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist, so don't try to paint it because you don't have to. Don't put that pressure on yourself. All right, now let's go ahead and paint our deciduous trees. So these are the ones that decide that they're gonna drop their leaves. I'm gonna show you those with my trusty little paper here. So I'm running out of room on this, but we have our middle landform that comes out like that. Because my paper is so small, I'm not gonna paint two on here. I'll just paint one because I only need to really show you one time. Maybe you can rewind it and watch it again. So I would say in general, maybe 60% of people prefer painting deciduous trees rather than these fir trees. These take practice. And I would recommend every time you're doodling, just practice, practice, practice. Look at a lot of trees, see how they're built, and practice a lot. I wasn't born painting perfect trees. It took a lot of practice and a lot of just teaching them. I learned a lot in the last 9 years just teaching. So for deciduous trees, the best way that I have found to teach them, I'm gonna take a look at Tanya's. Yeah, she does them like I do. So I draw the tree trunk and I purposely will make it slightly wavy. You don't want it like curly, like ramen noodles. Just think like a little wavy. So it's imperfect. And it's always gonna be thicker at the ground. The root ball grows from there. And I start off by making a Y shape. That branch ended up a little thick. So an imperfect Y, maybe one side. In fact, I will try to make one side longer than the other so it doesn't look too planned out. The branches are long and they grow upward and outward. So what I want you to avoid is this. Here's my Y, and I'm going to branch off of those, and every branch is going to be the exact same length and look really rigid. This, for a graphic, t-shirt graphic sort of tree, is fine. It looks a lot like deer antlers. So to avoid that, I come in and I make them wavy and long and different lengths. So this kind, if you end up with the deer antlers, very fixable. Don't feel like you've wrecked it. Long, wavy, branches off of branches, off of branches, off of branches. These are like a bunch of split ends. So we've got this is the blueprint, the Y shape, the wonky Y. And then I'm gonna come off of that one. And then I'll come off of this one. And that is how I build my tree. I just decide which branch do I want to branch off of. You'll have multiple coming out of one branch. There's one there. So here I've got one on either side of this main branch I put on. I do like to have a little water mixed in with my paint for sure. And then just keep branching off and up and out, up and out. And some of these are gonna go off the canvas because the top of our canvas kind of comes through here, and yeah, sometimes they might end up off the canvas. Depends on how tall you build your tree. So that, yeah, like I said, a lot of people like these better. I'd be curious to know what you guys like better. If you want to put it in the comments, I love finding out who likes what was hard for you, what was easy. So back to the canvas, and yes, there are two trees on the original, just kind of side by side. They're about an inch apart, inch and a half apart. And on both of them, they go up and off the canvas. Now, you don't have to make them go off the canvas. Maybe you make one go off the canvas and one a little shorter. I always think that's a good rule of thumb, so I'll do that on this one. Make sure you have some water mixed with your paint. And for just the Y shape, not the little tiny branches, we're just gonna draw the original blueprint Y shape. I want you to use your middle brush. Unless you really are stressed out about using anything other than the tiny brush. Tiny brush we will use for the little branches. But I mean, if you feel more comfortable using it for the whole thing, that's okay. So let's go ahead and figure out, let's do this one that's closest to the side so we make sure that we leave room for it. So this is one, I'm not gonna make this one go off the canvas. It's gonna be shorter, and then this next one will go off the canvas. So let's plant it right about an inch or so from this edge. Just come in here. Don't be scared. Make a wavy stick coming out of the ground first. I'm going to make it a little bit thicker at the bottom. And then as I go up, I'm kind of lightening the pressure. How hard am I pushing? And I'm going to go up and out. If yours ends up going off the side of the canvas, I'll make mine do that. That's okay. I'm going to clean up that. And now for the other part of the Y, I'm going to branch it off here. Right about like that. The branches will be a little thicker where they grow out of the tree trunk too. So I'm going to set this brush aside. I'll wash it off. Now for the little itty bitty twigs and branches, we want to use our smallest brush. You might have this little number 6 round, or you might have this long handled number 4 round, or you might have your own, whatever works. And we want it to be small though. I'm gonna dip it in water, it's kind of dried out, and then add a drop of water to some black. You don't want it super fluid, just a little bit. Like I said, paint gets kind of thick sitting there for a long time. We don't have a whole lot left to do on this painting, so you'll be able to take a little break and enjoy your hard work in just a bit. So I'm going to add little twiggy branches that come off. You may end up going over a star, that's okay. I'm guessing this is a winter scene because there's no leaves. Or fall, I guess. I'll put a little branch coming off here. My grandmother was an artist, and she's the one who taught me how to do these with drawing, and I just sort of transferred that knowledge to the paintbrush. I always think about her though when I'm painting deciduous trees. Okay, there's one. Now we just have one more to do. Can we do it? Yes, we can. Wash the little guy off, set little brush aside. We're gonna go back to our medium brush, whether it's your round one or your flat one, doesn't matter. And I'm sorry, I probably am repeating myself over and over with that. It's all right. I just will talk a lot. Okay, middle-sized brush. We're gonna make the second tree. You decide where you want it to be. Now I know in the original it's about 1.5 inches away from this one, but you could put it out here. There's a lot of room on this little landform. So I am gonna put mine out here. It's gonna go higher up, it's gonna go off the canvas, but yours doesn't have to. Yours can be the same height as this one, or maybe a little shorter. You decide what feels right with your painting. I am gonna put it right here, actually, a little closer to that tree than I had originally planned. I'm gonna go up to about here, within a couple inches from the top of the canvas. I'll make the tree trunk a little thicker at the bottom. And now I'm going to take this and go off the top. Play around with how hard you're pressing. Light pressure kind of wins the game here. Now I'm going to make the other side of the Y, which is going to come out somewhere partway up the tree and go off this way. Make it a little thicker. I tend to end up gradually making my tree trunk thicker and thicker because sometimes I'll end up with a really thick branch and I'm like, that little skinny tree trunk wouldn't support the weight of that. That's kind of what I'm dealing with right now. So I'll just make the trunk of the tree a little thicker. And now I'm going to switch to my littlest brush and do the twiggy little branches that come off. And you can make some little broken ones, like I could do one that comes out here and has a little Y shape to it. But I generally just use these original ones and just keep building off of them. Some will go off the canvas and some won't. Then I just sort of have to decide at what point I'm done adding branches. Remember, in nature, these will crisscross over each other if the trees are right next to each other. So don't try to make them avoid each other. It's us humans that are doing that right now. We're social distancing right now, but the trees don't have to. All right. Pretty good. Now we just have some highlighting to do. And we'll be home free. The highlighting is easy and fun, and it does turn this, like right now it looks really cool as it is, but the highlighting just adds that extra little finished look. So brush wise, I am going to highlight in the grass a bit here. Remember earlier we were using our big brush and we were sort of doing that little flick thing? We're gonna do that with highlight just even down in here. And color-wise, we're going to mix blue and white. So let's see. I might even throw a tiny bit of black in there to kind of make it more of a gray blue. So let's scrape off a little blue. Scrape off a little white, about the same amount as the blue, just at first. So you get a medium, it's not necessarily like a sky blue, it's like a darker than that, medium blue. And then I will add just a tiny bit of black to that. So you get a gray blue. I would call this like a smoke blue or a steel blue. It's going to be way lighter than the black that we're going to be painting it on. When I've taught this before, I know I've used just plain white and blue. But I do like having the black into it so it's not so in your face, like boom, I'm a highlight right there. We want it to be somewhat subtle. But I've got a whole lot of paint on this brush from mixing color. So I'm actually gonna wash it, start fresh. Wash it off, dry it off. You obviously don't have to get every single last little speck of paint out of this because we're gonna be using the same color. But now I've got a fresh wash brush. I'm gonna dip the tip of the bristles in and pick up a little of that blue-gray color I made. Pop this up here. I'm gonna flip this around so I can access it easier. And let's start with the grass. So just back in here, do a couple little, set your brush down and flick it upward. Yeah, that looks good. I've got such a weird glare here that I have to really lean on top of this to see. But I think having that grayish color in there where we mix the black and the blue was ideal. Now this tree, it technically would probably cast a shadow behind it because our light source is over here. So think about that. You don't have to put any highlighted areas down, not too much, behind this tree. That gives it more of the idea of, oh, it's casting a shadow. Maybe a pop or a hint of one or two would be okay. And while we're in grass mode, let's go ahead and flip over to this little island and do the same thing. We can bring some of these down close to the water. This is such an easy way to highlight, and it does such a remarkable job of making it look like grass. We've got bluegrass. And again, these would likely be casting a shadow this way and this way. And probably technically in the water too, but you don't have to go there. So you could, think about it and leave a little bit of dark behind this tree trunk and this tree trunk. Never using too much paint, just a little. You can always add more. I'm loving that. That looks so good. I do love this painting. Tony did a great job. And people always want to paint it. If you want, let's see what it looks like to add. I know we're gonna put some on here, but let's see what it looks like back on these trees. You use a little, like the skinny edge of the brush. You could totally put some bluish highlights on some of these. Maybe use a smaller brush. I'm using the big one right now, so let's see what it looks like when I use the little brush. I do like that. It's kind of just adding a nice little pop of color back here while still keeping it subtle. So I just primarily am putting this under the moon, and this is just a little extra credit. Little extra credit thing. Now let's go ahead and highlight the tree boughs on this guy. And so this is where it can thin out your tree if it's gotten a little overkill. And let's think about this. This is your light bulb, and it's going to be casting light this way. So this side of the tree is going to be highlighted. This is going to be primarily in the dark. So I'm just going to come out on the ends here. Oh yeah, I like that. You can use a smaller brush too than this big one. I would probably be using this brush normally, or one of my medium brushes, but I'm liking this one today, I guess. Last little thing before signing, let's highlight the tree trunks here. And I want to use either your smallest or your middle-sized brush. We want to use the same bluish color. And again, this is our light bulb. It's going to be casting light this way. So the right side of these tree trunks are going to be highlighted. And you can do kind of a scratchy line because that just gives more of the suggestion of tree bark. And if you have, some bigger branches, you can highlight those too. It'll help thin them out if needed. But I pretty much leave all these little twig branches not highlighted. I ended up with kind of a thick branch up here, so I'll highlight it just to thin it out. So it's primarily the tree trunk and any big branches you might have. And then this one over here too. I'm gonna get highlights. And there we go. The last thing always with the painting is to sign it. You get to choose whatever color you want. Let's see, I am going to go with purple. I'm gonna add a little bit of white to it. And I usually just put my initials. I'm gonna add blue to it too. I think I've got every color in my palette mixed in here. A little black. I made mud, bluish mud. Oops, that's not even my right brush. I'm gonna sign with my smallest brush. And for the signature, a lot of people ask, what do I put? I usually just, because I sign so many paintings when teaching, a lot of times I forget. I'll usually just put my little initials down here or down here. I'll probably put them here on this one. And you can do like your first initial, last name, whatever seems right to you. You can make your own little symbol like Prince. But there, I've just done a quick little loop-to-loop. JS, and it doesn't look like it. It looks like a J, but it doesn't look like an S. But that is it. And when you are completely done, you can paint the edges. I would mix like maybe the blue and purple together and just paint around the whole thing. Or you can wrap colors around the sides, but it's really easy to just mix two of the colors that you use in the painting together and cover all the sides. And yeah, I mean, you can keep adding more stuff to this if you want. If you wanted to try to reflect these tree trunks down in the water, you could do that. But make sure that you line it up with the shadow. So this is casting a shadow here, which means that the tree trunk shadow in the water would also go at that angle for both of them. Add more stars if you want, kind of in between the trees here and there. But feel proud of yourself. It's a great painting. Now you guys know how to do it. And just know that if you ended up with something that maybe you thought you would do better another time, you can paint white for the entire painting once it's dry and just start it again fresh and do it again and again if you want, if you really want to punish yourself that much. Just kidding. Thank you so much for painting along with me. We've got a whole bunch of different kits of our popular paintings for sale right now on vineGo.com, and then GoBox.com also has other kits available and some kids kits. And yeah, check us out. Subscribe to the channel. We post videos all the time, especially now that we're homebound for a while. And we'll see you later. Thank you so much. Have a great day.